Hello, everyone. I mix both, maybe. Uh, First of all, I am Eduardo. I'm from Peru, and I am a geneticist. I have to admit that I am a huge fanboy of you, Miss Dr. Blackburn. During my subjects, in chromosome structure or oncogenetics, I have literally read your papers, and I am so it's my honor to be here with all of you. But well, now I am doing a master in health policies, and maybe is this way. Like many scientists, young scientists or old scientists in Latin America, things like okay, we are scientists. We are supposed to do lab jobs, maybe bioinformatic jobs, and that's very well. That's great. That's okay, but maybe in relation with, for example, how we can involve science and policies, or how can we, look out of the window, through the window. Maybe you can recommend for the young scientists to do, you have just said that we are supposed to know something really well, to get something to give to the other part of the world, to the other people. That's great, but do you think that a scientist's place is the lab, only the lab, or what do you think? What do you recommend for the young scientists to do in this, with these energies and young age?
Oh, I think the lab is only one kind of scientific research. I mean, you rightfully pointed out bioinformatics. There are computational scientists where really, deep understanding of, things like artificial intelligence, just as a popular example, where, we think of it as a tool in some ways, but there's a great deal to be learned about, really deeply, how does that computer science actually work? And so that's a kind of science where you'd never be in a lab per se. Is the kind of science where I think you're talking about health policies. This means being in the community, but understanding how you can best make the information that you get from working in the community rigorous, reliable information that can then guide policy well. So I think the lab is one kind of training ground because it sets the setting for that kind of thinking. It is a useful training ground in that way. But so long as the thinking is there, science is all about the process and the methods, right? That's really what it's about. But it can be applied in so many, and can be, lived and practiced in so many other settings besides the lab. But it's just, you're quite right. The traditional view is it's in the lab. But if you were studying health policy, I think there's huge amounts of important things that one learns out the window, right?
But even there, you do a lot of research and you have to be able to sort out sort of fact from fiction and have kind of an evidence-based recommendation for moving forward. So rigorous scientific training could be applicable to many different professions moving forward.
Yes, yeah. And I think you could probably do superb health, community, population science and never have set foot in a lab. Right? You might want to be able to understand some of the biometric and biological and biomarker criteria that are used, for example, or medical criteria, but really the methodology and the critical thinking critically, that's what science, as we talked about at the beginning, that's really what it's about. You really got to engage your brain in this. And there are structures and ways of teaching this, that's what science trains us to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good point. Okay, we have time for a few more questions here. Eduardo, you've been wanting to get in for a while.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Well, I want to introduce a subject, a serious one, about the mental health. We know that, for example, PhD students are much more affected from, diseases, mental health diseases, probably because the stress, probably because the frustration about maybe the experiments, maybe the financiation, how the money gets. I remember when I was applying for a PhD that was frustrated because of the pandemic, but I have a mentor that that like ask me, are you sure that you want to follow this path? I mean, maybe because I want to do much more applied science, maybe you will prefer to do a medical degree, not a PhD or an MD, PhD, and many other paths. I mean, like, hey, taking into account that there is not one only path for a scientist. And this PhD path is many times compromised by the mental health. So I don't know, what do you think, or what do you can advise for the students to manage this situation?
Yes, well, not only the students. I think any program in any institution that takes on a program of PhD students has to recognize, it's getting better, that yes, this is a very real issue, you know, for everybody, including notably PhD students in this context that we're talking about. But I think that what it needs is that, yes, we have to recognize this is real, and there's various pathways that one can, you know, help deal with mental illness, including programs being very flexible about timing, for example, you know, realizing that the time frame may be different if somebody has to grapple with you know, mental illness or mental situations of various kinds, and understanding that, you know, we have to time appropriately. We also need to have very good sensitivity to when somebody is in that situation. So this has been a learning curve, like so many, you know, and the pandemic has sort of been helpful, you know, in all the bad ways, of course, it's happened, but it's also highlighted certain realities. And I think the issue of mental illness and, you know, mental situations that weren't taken seriously are now really being recognized. So I'm hearing what you're saying is a very important part of, you know, it's certainly part of the PhD training, and of course much more generally as well.
That's probably true for society at large, because we're understanding much more about mental health issues.
Yes.
If you just look back 10, 15, 20 years ago, environments are being kinder. There's better ways to understand, identify, and hopefully help people who are struggling.
Yeah, and part of that has been really science, medical science, and, you know, applying what we've understood about not only the brain but the physiology. This actually has helped to sort of say, yeah, this is actually what's going on, and a certain amount of demystification is very helpful in terms of much broader, you know, acceptance of what's going on in people, that before it was so mysterious and frightening, it was sort of pushed under the rug and not properly dealt with. And more, I think we are improving societally in dealing with these things. So I hope that carries through to PhD.
Absolutely.
programs.